let's talk about that Tuesday morning back in November of 2025. You might remember it. It was the day a huge chunk of the internet just stopped. This wasn't some dramatic hack or a cyber attack you see in the movies. Nope, this was something way more fundamental. It was a failure deep inside the web's hidden machinery. So today, we're going to break down exactly what happened, why it was such a big deal, and what it tells us about the internet we so completely depend on.
I mean, it's a question we almost never ask, right? We just assume the internet is always there, kind of like the power or running water. But what if it isn't? Well, this event gives us a very real and very disruptive answer to that question. And for so many of us, this was the first sign that something was wrong. This simple, super frustrating message popping up on all the websites and apps we use every single day. But this wasn't just one site having a bad day. Oh no, this was a warning shot, a sign that a critical pillar holding up our digital world was starting to crumble.
So let's get into it. This wasn't just your favorite social media app going down. The problem was so much deeper. It hit a company called Cloudflare, and if you don't know that name, you should. They're one of the foundational pillars that basically holds up the entire modern web.
Okay, so what is Cloudflare anyway? The simplest way to think about it is like a massive security guard and a super efficient traffic cop for the internet. It protects websites from attacks and makes sure they load lightning fast for you. So when Cloudflare goes down, it's like that guard and that cop just vanish into thin air, leaving countless websites totally exposed and impossible to reach. And you can see here, the clock was absolutely ticking. At 12:03 Universal Time, Cloudflare officially admits there's a problem. For the next hour, as their engineers are scrambling, the digital world just starts falling apart, piece by piece. The race was on to figure out why.
And here's the most important thing to understand. A problem at Cloudflare doesn't just stay at Cloudflare. Its failure created this huge cascade of outages that spread like a shockwave across the entire internet. One problem became everybody's problem, fast.
And just look at the list of casualties. The impact was incredibly broad. It wasn't just social media or streaming services. We're talking about the AI tools we use, the games we play, how we get a ride or order food, our work software, shipping companies, even public transportation apps. All these digital tools we rely on for work, for play, for just living our lives, were all breaking at the same time.
And this is where a high-tech problem gets very real very quickly. I mean, one person reported they couldn't even buy a train ticket on their NJ Transit app. Suddenly, it's not about being unable to post a photo, it's about being physically unable to get where you need to go.
To put some numbers on the chaos, check this out. Over 12,000 people rushed to Down Detector just to report that X was down. And you have to remember, that is just one of the dozens and dozens of major services that were failing.
And here is the absolute kicker. The very website people use to check if other websites are down was also down. And why? You guessed it, because Down Detector itself uses Cloudflare. It's this perfect, almost comical example of just how deep our dependency on these core services really goes.
You know, this outage created a lot more than just frustrated users. It delivered a massive financial blow. Because when the internet breaks, the economy feels it, and it feels it hard.
Just let these numbers sink in for a second. Cloudflare powers nearly a fifth of all websites on the entire internet, and more than a third of the world's biggest, most profitable companies, the Fortune 500, they all rely on its services. That is a staggering amount of the global economy flowing through one single network. So what's the price tag for a failure like this? Well, analysts estimated the financial damage could be as high as $15 billion. Not for the whole day, for every single hour the outage continued. That's billions in lost sales, lost productivity, lost trust, just ticking away minute by minute.
And this quote from Jason Long just absolutely nails it. He says, Cloudflare is like the plumbing in your house. You never think about it. You just expect it to work. But when it breaks, suddenly nothing works. And it is a full-blown crisis. That's what businesses felt, immediately, right in their bottom line.
Look, this wasn't just some freak accident or a random glitch in the system. The Cloudflare outage was actually a symptom of a much larger, and honestly, more troubling issue with how our entire digital world has been built. Benjamin Schultz, the CEO of Wire, he put it perfectly. He said this whole mess shows how brittle our digital reliance has become. And the key phrase in there, the one you need to remember, is single point of failure. That's when one company's mistake can take everybody else down with it.
So what in the world is a single point of failure? Well, it's pretty much exactly what it sounds like.
It's a flaw in a system where if one single part breaks, the entire thing stops working. It's one weak link that can snap the whole chain. And as we saw, the internet has some very, very big ones.
So really, it boils down to this. On one side, you have the internet we have today. Super convenient, but highly dependent on just a handful of massive companies, which is incredibly risky. And on the other side is what a lot of experts say we need, a more resilient internet with more diversity, with real backup plans and no single point of failure.
This whole event really forces us to ask a tough question. By putting so much of our digital world into the hands of a few giant companies, have we accidentally made the internet more efficient, but also dangerously fragile?
Okay, so the system was broken, everything was a mess. How did they actually put it back together? Let's jump back to the timeline of that frantic Tuesday and see how the engineers raced to get things working again.
So after they finally identified the problem just after 1 p.m. Universal Time, it took Cloudflare's engineers almost 2 more hours to actually implement a fix. By 2:53 p.m., the solution was deployed, but the work wasn't over. They then had to carefully watch the entire global network as all those services slowly, cautiously came back to life.
And you can literally see the fix working in real time right here. The number of user outage reports just plummeted as soon as that fix was rolled out. The digital bleeding had finally been stopped.
So the immediate crisis was over. The internet came back, but it left behind a really powerful lesson. For a few hours, that invisible infrastructure that holds our whole world together became very visible because it was gone, and we got a scary glimpse of just how delicate the whole thing really is.
Which leaves us with one final, pretty important question. Yeah, the internet was saved this time. But as we become more and more dependent on it every single day, are we building our digital future on a foundation of sand? And what happens the next time a single point of failure gives way?